Your car battery is probably not dying from age. It is dying from the same small mistakes most drivers never notice until the car won't start in the morning. And that is exactly why people keep spending $150, $200, even $300 on new batteries that fail again way too soon. Most drivers assume that if the battery is new and the alternator checks out, the charging system must be fine. That belief is what keeps the problem alive. Because a weak ground, dirty terminals, short trip charging, or a hidden battery monitoring issue can slowly kill a perfectly good battery long before its time. The good news is, this usually starts with something small, not catastrophic. Catch it early, and you can stop the repeat replacements, avoid the misdiagnosis trap, and make your battery last much longer. And yes, there is a simple Japanese-style habit behind it, but first, you need to see what's actually killing the battery. Quick disclaimer before we start, the tips and guides in this video are for educational purposes only. Every vehicle is different, so please use this information at your own risk. We are not responsible for any damage or injury that may occur. When in doubt, always consult a professional mechanic. Most drivers do the exact same thing. The battery dies, they buy a new battery, maybe have the alternator checked, and then move on. That feels logical, because batteries are wear items, cold weather is real, and everyone has been taught that battery failure is just part of car ownership. But that is also why this problem keeps repeating. A battery can be brand new and still live in a bad electrical environment. If the terminals have resistance, the ground cable is weak, the car only sees short trips, or something keeps pulling power after shutdown, that battery is never really being restored the way people think it is. It is just surviving on the surface until one morning it doesn't. This is where people waste money. They treat the battery like the cause, when a lot of the time, it is only the victim. And because the car may start fine for a few days or weeks after a jumper replacement, it creates the illusion that the expensive fix worked. It didn't. It just reset the countdown. The real issue is not whether the battery is new. The real issue is what the battery has been living through. And once you see that, the diagnosis changes fast. Here's what's actually happening. A car battery does not stay healthy just because it is new. It stays healthy when it gets the right charge cycle, the right connections, and enough time to recover after each start. And that is where a lot of cars quietly fail. Every time you start the engine, the battery gives up a big shot of power. On a long enough drive, that energy gets put back. But on short trips, stop-and-go driving, or cars that sit too much, the battery keeps getting partially discharged and never fully restored. That is when sulfation starts building up. In plain English, that means the battery plates slowly get coated with hard crystal deposits that reduce capacity over time. Now add dirty terminals, a weak ground cable, or a hidden parasitic draw after shutdown, and the problem gets worse. Think of it like trying to fill a bucket with a clogged hose while someone is drilling a tiny hole in the bottom. The battery may still look new from the outside, but electrically it is living under stress every day. And this is the chain reaction most people miss. Undercharging leads to sulfation. Sulfation reduces capacity. Reduced capacity makes the battery struggle on cold starts. Repeated strain overheats the system. And then people start blaming the battery, the alternator, or even other electronics one by one. So the battery is often not the root cause. It is just the first part that gives up and gets noticed. And the expensive part starts when that misunderstanding leads to the wrong replacement. This is where a small battery problem turns into an expensive ownership problem. At first, it looks minor. The car cranks a little slower. The lights dim once. Maybe it only struggles after sitting overnight. So most drivers wait, then the battery dies, they buy another one for $150 to $300, and the car starts again. Problem solved. At least, that's what it looks like. But if the real issue was undercharging, bad grounds, or a parasitic drain, that new battery is now being damaged by the same condition that killed the last one. So, instead of fixing a cheap connection or catching a hidden drain early, people burn through another battery, lose a morning, need a jump, miss work, or end up stuck in a parking lot wondering how a new battery already failed. And this is where the bill grows. Not because batteries are always expensive, but because delay multiplies cost. One ignored connection issue becomes repeat replacements. One undiagnosed drain becomes a dead car. One wrong guess leads to the next wrong part. That's how a fix that should have started with cleaning, testing, and checking turns into a cycle of wasted money. But the part most people miss is this. A battery usually does not die all at once. It dies from a pattern of small losses, small resistance, and small neglect that add up faster than most drivers realize. And this is exactly why the 2-minute Japanese habit matters. Not because it is magic, not because it revives a dead battery forever, but because it helps you catch the conditions that shorten battery life before they turn into another replacement. So instead of guessing, we need a simple system. First, fix the connections. Then, check the ground side. Then, test for the drain most people never measure. Step 1. Fix the connection before you blame the battery. Start with the part almost everyone skips because it looks too simple to matter. A battery can test weak, crank slowly, and still not be the real problem if the terminals are dirty, loose, or building resistance. That white or green crust people ignore is not just cosmetic. It acts like a barrier between the battery and the car. The battery may still have usable power, but the car is having a harder time getting it. This is where people waste money fast. They replace the battery first because a battery feels like the obvious answer. But before you spend $150 to $300, spend a few minutes checking the terminal clamps, the contact surfaces, and the hold down. If the battery is vibrating because it is not secured properly, that shortens life too. The right move is simple. Disconnect the terminals, clean them properly, make sure the clamps sit tight, and protect them with a light coating of dielectric grease or terminal protectant. This is the cheap test before the expensive guess. And if the problem improves immediately after that, you just learned something important. The battery may not have been the main failure at all. Step 2. Check the ground side, not just the positive side. Now here is where most people get this wrong. They look at the positive terminal, maybe the alternator, and then stop. But the ground side is where a lot of repeat battery problems hide. A bad ground cable can make a healthy battery act weak, a starter act lazy, and lights flicker in ways that look like battery failure. Think of the ground cable as the return path for everything electrical. If that path is loose, corroded, or broken inside the insulation, the car can still act mostly normal right up until the moment it doesn't. That is why some drivers get a new battery, feel good for a week, and then hear the same slow crank all over again. So inspect the cable from the negative terminal to the body and engine. Look for swelling, corrosion, creeping under the insulation, frayed wire, loose mounting points, or signs of heat. If the ground connection is dirty, where it bolts to the chassis, clean that too. This matters because a bad ground is usually far cheaper than repeated battery replacements. And this is also one of those problems that works best when you catch it early. If the cable is already internally damaged, cleaning alone will not save it. At that point, replacement is the smarter move. Step 3. Measure the drain most people never measure. And this is where people get upsold. If the battery dies after sitting overnight, especially when no lights or accessories were left on, you are no longer dealing with bad luck. You may be dealing with a parasitic draw. Something in the car is staying awake and quietly draining the battery after shutdown. The mistake is that people jump straight to the battery, or even the alternator, because those are familiar parts. But a small overnight draw can kill even a good battery if it happens over and over again. That is how people end up installing a more expensive AGM battery into a car that still has the same hidden drain. The new battery lasts a little longer, so it feels like an upgrade worked. It didn't fix the cause, it just bought time. Here's the correct approach. Let the car sit for about 20 to 45 minutes so the modules can go to sleep. Then measure parasitic draw with a multimeter if you know how to do it safely. If you do not, ask for a parasitic draw test specifically. That wording matters because it tells the shop you do not want a generic battery sale. You want the actual drain found. If the battery keeps dying after sitting, if it clicks in the morning, or if the same failure returns within months of a new install, this is one of the first tests that actually saves money. Step 4. Stop the short trip habit that quietly kills batteries. That is the electrical side. Now, here is the behavior side. A lot of batteries do not die because something is broken. They die because they live in a constant state of partial recharge. Short trips, cold starts, idling, and long periods of sitting mean the battery gives up energy to start the car, but never gets enough time to fully recover. Do that long enough, and sulfation builds. Capacity drops. Cold starts get weaker. The cycle speeds up. This is where the Japanese habit actually makes sense, not as magic, but as discipline. The habit is a short, repeatable ritual. Open the hood, look at the terminals, check for corrosion, make sure the battery is secure, and stop ignoring the battery until it strands you. That part really can take about 2 minutes. But the deeper part is what comes after. If your driving is mostly short trips, give the battery a proper recharge cycle with a longer drive every week or two, or use a battery maintainer if the car sits a lot. Most drivers keep asking, why does my battery keep dying? When the real answer is that the battery never gets a fair chance to stay healthy. And this only works if you catch it before the battery's capacity has already collapsed. Once sulfation is severe, habits help the next battery more than the one already dying. Step 5. Watch for the hidden control problem. Battery monitoring and IBS issues. Now we get to the part most normal drivers never hear about. On many newer cars, the charging system is not just battery plus alternator anymore. It is managed. The car uses a battery sensor, often called an IBS, or intelligent battery sensor, to decide how aggressively to charge, when to reduce load, and how to protect the system. If that sensor is faulty, or if the battery was replaced without the system being properly adapted on cars that require it, the battery can live in the wrong charge pattern for months. That means the battery gets blamed for a control problem. The warning signs are subtle. Repeated battery failure even after replacement, strange discharge warnings, erratic auto stop-start behavior, weird low-voltage electrical issues, or a battery that keeps testing okay but never seems to stay strong. This is where people spend too much too early, because the battery is the visible part and the sensor logic is invisible. So before replacing another battery, ask a smarter question. Is the car charging the battery correctly, or just assuming it is? On some vehicles, a scan tool check or battery registration process matters more than buying a better battery. That is the method in plain English. Clean the connection, check the ground, measure the drain, fix the habit, and don't ignore the control side. Do that before you throw another battery at the car. And you stop guessing. You start diagnosing. So up to this point, you can already see the pattern. Most repeat battery failures are not random. They come from bad connections, hidden drain, short trip undercharging, or a charging control issue that gets missed while people keep replacing the battery. But none of that helps if you miss the one condition that changes everything. The point where the battery is already past the cheap fix stage. Because once sulfation is permanent, or a cable is damaged internally, or a module fault is draining power in the background, cleaning and better habits will only help so much. And this is where a lot of videos stop being honest. So now let's talk about the mistakes people make, the myths that sound helpful, and the point where this method stops being enough. Now, let's clean up the biggest myths, because this is where people either save money or keep repeating the same mistake. The first myth is that a new battery means the problem is solved. It doesn't. A new battery only proves the old one was weak. It does not prove the car's charging environment is healthy. If the terminals are dirty, the ground is weak, or something is draining power overnight, the new battery is just entering the same bad system the old one died in. The second myth is that buying a better battery fixes a bad pattern. Sometimes people jump to an expensive AGM battery hoping it will handle it better. It may buy a little time, but if the real issue is undercharging, parasitic draw, or an IBS-related control problem, a better battery is still the wrong first move. The third myth is that this method can bring back any battery. It can't. This works best when the battery is still basically healthy but being shortened by bad habits, dirty connections, or light undercharging. In that stage, cleaning the terminals, correcting the ground, reducing drain, and giving the battery proper recharge cycles can absolutely extend life. It helps a little when the battery is already aging, capacity is reduced, and sulfation has started to become more established. You may improve performance, delay failure, or help the next battery last longer, but you are no longer fully undoing the damage. And it will not fix the problem anymore. When the battery has permanent sulfation, a cell has failed, the ground cable is broken internally, or a control module fault is keeping the system unstable. At that point, maintenance is no longer the answer. Diagnosis and replacement are. That nuance matters. Because smart maintenance is not pretending every battery can be saved. It is knowing when to protect it, when to monitor it, and when to stop wasting time. So here's the simplest way to think about it. Fix now, monitor, or don't spend yet. Fix now if the battery keeps dying overnight, the car gives you a clicking sound instead of cranking, the same failure came back within months of a new battery, or you see obvious corrosion, loose terminals, a weak ground, or a discharge warning on the dash. In that case, stop guessing. Clean the terminals, inspect the ground path, and test for parasitic draw or a charging control issue before buying another battery. Monitor if the car still starts, but you notice slow cranking, dim lights, or a battery resting voltage that is drifting lower over time. That usually means you are not in full failure yet, but you are heading there. This is the stage where better habits matter most. Fix the connections, reduce short trip abuse, give the battery a proper recharge cycle, and recheck the voltage instead of waiting for a no-start warning. Don't spend yet if the battery is performing normally, the car starts consistently, and your only reason for replacing it is age alone. A battery being 3 or 4 years old is not automatic proof that it is done. What matters is how it behaves, not just how old it is. So here's the simple plan. First, open the hood and inspect the battery like a system, not just a box. Check for corrosion, loose clamps, poor hold down, and obvious damage on the negative ground cable. Clean what needs cleaning before you assume the battery itself is done. Then, think about the pattern. Does the car mostly do short trips? Does it sit for days? Does it die after sitting overnight? That tells you more than battery age ever will. If the battery keeps going dead after sitting, stop replacing parts blindly and check for parasitic draw or ask for that test specifically. If the car has battery management, electronics, or an IBS sensor, make sure the charging side is being checked too, not just the battery label and the alternator headline number. Recheck the battery behavior after you clean the connections and improve the charge pattern. Watch for stronger starts, fewer low voltage symptoms, and no overnight drop. Don't jump straight to the most expensive battery just because the last one failed early, and only move to the expensive option if testing shows the battery's already lost capacity, a cable is damaged internally, or the control side of the system is clearly faulty. The bigger point here is not just battery life. It is the kind of car ownership that keeps you out of unnecessary trouble. A lot of expensive repairs begin as small, ignored problems. A dirty terminal, a weak ground, a battery that never gets fully recharged. None of that looks dramatic at first. But leave it alone long enough, and it turns into a dead morning, a wasted replacement, or a repair bill that should have been smaller. And that is what smart maintenance really is. Not obsessing over every tiny detail, not panic buying parts, just knowing what matters early enough to act before the damage compounds. That is how you spend less, fix smarter, avoid preventable damage, and keep the car longer without feeling like the car is always one surprise away from costing you money. If this helped you see why batteries die early, subscribe for more ways to spend less, fix smarter, and avoid the repairs that start small. And if your battery keeps failing, leave a comment with your car, your symptom, and whether it is slow cranking, overnight drain, or a repeat replacement. Every script, edit, and voiceover on this channel is crafted with real human expertise, not mass-produced content. If this helped you, subscribe for more.